I went to visit my grandmother and other family this weekend, my aunt, uncles, cousin and his family, and we had a lot of discussions over those 2 days. Some of them were just family chit-chat, but plenty were politics or attempts at politics. Almost all of my family is against Trump, or at least think the Democratic candidates are better, even though at least one of them does see Hillary Clinton as a coward like I do. And some of them hope that if she does win, she'll be at least somewhat kept in check by Elizabeth Warren. I rather like Elizabeth Warren. She is a very strong speaker, and she would be a better president than Hillary Clinton, that I'm sure of. But at the convention, when she spoke of the people we are a nation of, she names lawyers. Well, there may have been many great lawyers throughout history, but I've seen what lawyers do to people and to families today, so pardon me about not being thrilled about living in a country governed by lawyers. I've been asked if anything could change my mind and persuade me to vote against Trump, and my response was, well, anything might. I'm certainly open to new evidence and ideas as they come forward, although, as I said in my 3 Candidates Left video, I still think he has the strongest answers for the nation's issues so far, and I'm wondering if he does drop out, who will come in then to replace him? I'm not sure. I'd definitely be interested in seeing. My family pretty much all thinks Trump will back out. If he does, that's okay. I'd just like his replacement to be someone with an actual backbone and realistic plans on how to defend and revive America. Now, the Republican Party has been called the Old White Men's Club, and at a glance it certainly does look like it. Actually, I think what politics really is a lawyer's club. And this I've also expressed my opinions on before. I don't like it at all that our country is run by people educated as lawyers. They are taught to win at all costs, to cover up their mistakes, to hide behind excuses, and to play the political correctness, or wussiness, game to thrive. Once you're in a game like that, and as big as that has grown, and it's true that you can't get anywhere really without playing that game, but at the same time, the American public, the general population, is god-awful sick and tired of it. This is why Donald Trump was succeeding for such a long time, because he used that, resonated with people's frustration, and spoke bluntly, even if he came off a lot of times as a jerk and an egotist, which he is. Now, however, he's starting to lose a lot of supporters, even from the Republican side. He is losing them now because many believe he has gone too far with his racist, sexist, and what's the word for the irrational judgment of a religion? I'm not sure, but as I've said before, I didn't like him at first either. I didn't like how he talked to his rivals during the debates. I didn't like how he talked about women, even if, it was meant to be jokes a lot of the time. I didn't like it. But this issue about Trump University and Judge Gonzalo Curiel seems to have really pushed people away from him that were with him before, and calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas because she claims to have some Cherokee ancestry. I think that's the tribe she said. Cherokee. First of all, Pocahontas was not Cherokee, she was Matawaka. And second, that's tiny. I tried to research the Judge Curiel issue and had trouble understanding what was really going on with it. I think Trump definitely needs to actually put some thought into how he talks to people, even if I share some of his views on national issues, but On one hand, it appears that Judge Curiel was a member of the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association Scholarship Committee, which did award scholarships to many Hispanic recipients who made comments about being in the country illegally. And Stefan Molyneux, again, a philosopher and a very good speaker who I've been following for a while, has a presentation about this issue that goes into way further political detail than I can articulate on YouTube, called The Truth About Trump University and Judge Gonzalo Curiel. And is it just possible that this judge may have a bias against someone who has told the country that he will build a wall between the United States and Mexico? Maybe. On the other hand, Judge Curiel did put up a fight against the Mexican drug cartels, a long and courageous fight during his time as a federal prosecutor, during which he was targeted for assassination. As Elizabeth Warren describes, he has been serving and defending America for his entire life. So yeah, I think he has the ability to judge any case fairly. I don't know a whole lot about Trump University. I've tried to follow some, and look, if Donald Trump blatantly lied about the services it was offering, what people would get out of it, then yes, that is illegal and he should be held accountable. But giving people a bad deal for their money in and of itself is not illegal, no matter how much it sucks. And let's be honest, most universities, maybe all these days, are so many times more expensive than the education you walk out of them with is worth. I was raised as a Democrat, effectively. My parents never told me that I had to be a Democrat, but I lived in a liberal neighborhood, was taught by a liberal government school, told by that school that it had an unusually diverse student body from among all the schools in the nation, which I, at some point, having traveled to several different places in the country, became increasingly skeptical of. Now, maybe my school did have a slightly higher proportion of minorities than the average, but I kept hearing of this still prevalent extreme racism in America, and wherever I went, I just wasn't seeing it. I was taught that liberals cared about the poor, cared about minorities, the environment, and the conservatives did not. Again, that it was this old white men's club that was only interested in money and big business, didn't care about or even believe in global warming or preserving the environment. Environmental science was always my passion. It was my major in college. So because of that, I believed it was better to be the liberal side, almost without question. Eventually, though, as kids grow up, they do start to question these things. They do take observation of what they're actually seeing into the world into account. And I wasn't seeing that conservatives didn't care. I was seeing that, while many of them were very, I guess you would say, traditional in their views, to maybe even traditional to some of the stereotypical Western cultures, but it was never that they didn't care. It was always that they wanted more. I shouldn't say never always to anything, but they wanted more real solutions. Less idealistic, because idealistic. It doesn't always work. I studied ecology in college. My major was environmental science, focused around ecology, with the prospect of addressing environmental issues around the world and contributing to knowledge and solutions. Both that and evolution, study of Earth's and species evolutionary history, were my passions, and that has never changed. They are still my passions. And yet, I try to take a realistic view of the world. If I'm going to find and contribute real solutions and plans for environmental issues and ecological reconstruction throughout the world, I cannot ignore human needs and uses for land and resources. I cannot ignore things like geological cycles, water scarcity, mineral and natural fuel reservoirs, habitat requirements of various species, as well as human habitation, and then species diversity, all of these. To the best of the knowledge that I can gather, and it is always imperfect, must play a role in my analysis and decision. I can't put, well, I must try not to put my own feelings and objectives before what can actually be realistically achieved. Even so, one cannot contemplate forever. You must eventually decide and act, and it's time for America to act. Western culture, both Europe and America, is crumbling both inside and from assault from foreign nations from the outside. We can open our doors to people from other nations and cultures, but can it be through a door and not through a giant hole in our border, metaphorically? Can we take some time to not accuse our own American culture so much of being always racist, sexist, bigoted? It gets tiring, and it's so unfair. Can we stop that and actually start healing its gaping wounds of bloated prisons and broken families? If we want equality between men and women, which I do, can we please start not telling high schoolers and college kids that boys are only interested in dating because they only want sex, or they only want to rape their girlfriends? Because I'll tell you, that's sure what most of health class sounded like to me. Can we stop being so afraid of each other and of offending each other? The things you can't say for fear of offense, they become so little. It's horrible to have to live so cautiously in fear all the time. Yet we do, because we've become afraid of talking back. Understandably, I suppose, because we're all punished, ostracized, and vindicated anytime we try to put up a resistance or an opposing point of view. But eventually, people get tired of it. Going back to the immigration issue as it's tied with gender equality and securing our national borders, there was just yet another Islamic terrorist attack in Orlando, Florida. I mean, how many of these are we going to have? And Islam used to be, a long time ago, this great gathering of knowledge. They would... one of my favorite scientists is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's an astrophysicist and an amazing storyteller. He has a show that's on Netflix called Cosmos, which explains, astronomy, the history of various sciences tied in with astrophysics, and he talks about this scientific golden age of the Islamic world from around AD 800 to 1100. The intellectual center of the world was Baghdad, and people from all over the world, of all faiths, or those like myself, atheists, were welcome to come and study and contribute knowledge. In the 12th century, the scholar Hamid al-Ghazali then rose to prominence, to power, and he declared that mathematics was the work of the devil. And that spread. And what happened? It wiped out this entire gathering of this entire history, this age of science and learning, and Islam has never recovered. That's very sad. So you have a religion and cultures from multiple countries without any separation of church and state, where one of the foundations of Western culture, or of at least American culture, is the separation between church and state. And Islam has been twisted, and in modern times, or for centuries now, built upon the belief that investigation, scientific inquiry, is the work of Satan. The sections, the different groups in the Middle East, the Sunnis and the Shiites, and these people have been waging religious wars for thousands of years, and now they're pouring into Europe and America, not merging their culture with ours, but keeping almost completely to theirs, calling us, meaning America, the big Satan, and Israel the little Satan, waging a war of terror, both patiently and strategically with Western culture, and we are not resisting. Because to resist is to be racist. Or religiousist. I'm still not sure of what the term actually is, but and it's religion, not a race. Some of us try to speak out, but we're a tiny minority. We get called racist for attributing terrorist attacks with Islam at all, and yet they are done in the name of Islam. Allahu Akbar doesn't just mean God is great anymore. It's become a war cry. And as I've also said before, Americans are picked apart again and again for having a racist, bigoted, misogynistic, rapist, gun-toting culture, when in fact we are one of the least of all of those in the world. 10 years ago, or 13 years ago, when it still seemed like people who wanted to allow gay marriages were in the small minority, and I was one of those who voted for gay marriage back then, even though I think marriage as a whole concept has been completely broken down. No one really understands what it was originally meant for. It's meant for creating a family. It's not just because two people are in love. That's... Even though I feel that way, I voted for gay marriage because I didn't see anything wrong with it. We're relatively tolerant, or we become relatively tolerant in a short amount of time. In less than a generation, Western attitude has much reversed. Now to not want gay marriage is to be shunned. So you have this very tolerant culture. At the same time, Muslims still want to behead gays and lesbians. When we were celebrating our first black president, by the way, Barack Obama is not black, he's biracial. And we are eagerly awaiting the election of our first woman president. Oh, but please, let's get one with a little more backbone than Hillary Clinton. Muslims still cover their women in burqas and marry off their child daughters. This goes on so frequently. Feminists accuse America of being misogynistic and patriarchal, but why aren't they waging war against that kind of treatment of women? Really? Why do we think mixing a tolerant culture with a non-tolerant culture is going to work? It's not working in Europe. And regardless of what he may claim, I'm not sure Donald Trump has an answer to ISIS. Even so, controlling its borders is a way for a country to control immigration and terrorism. And even though those are two different things, I think we've had enough for a while. At some point, we need to act. And if it's not going to be the government, if it's not going to be the president, or if you don't like the president, then it needs to be the American people. And right now, it seems we're accusing Western culture, I should say white Western culture, because that's the big scapegoat now, of so many atrocities and injustices. To avoid fighting the battles we're afraid to fight. Are we wusses? Maybe we can actually start defending each other instead of always accusing each other. If you want a better and brighter world, we need to be prepared to fight for it. I think I am. Are you?